All right, Joe Dellera's back. We haven't had you here in a while. Now that I'm like actually doing stuff consistently with this channel, maybe a little too consistently. I'm posting to the point where I feel like I'm getting ignored a little bit. But Joe Dellera's back, colleague at Action Network. We're gonna have a big picture conversation about sports and sports betting and its effects and the culture of sports betting and things of that nature. We were just talking about our days before we got started, which I know a lot of people would love to know about, but they've been very long, so we won't keep this very long. Is what I would say to that. How are we feeling, first of all, before we do this?
Dude, it's been a long day. I just got off the bet stream. That was a lot of fun. We did it with Matt Moore and Brendan Glasheen, who is
Of
now
course.
officially unrivaled Brendan. So
Wow.
he's been calling all their games for them. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was an exciting game. The Heat really kind of turned it up. So I know your Heat money line bet hit, and
I
it
did not
was
I did not have Heat money last time. I actually had Knicks first half, which cashed
hey.
I was scared off the full game, and I'm glad I did that.
Dude, if it makes you feel any better, I was all over Paul George today. Like so, and he got to 25. So we'll take that and hit a nice 13-1 SGP for Mike's game guide for the Action Network there too. So that was kind of cool.
Okay, cool. We're gonna talk about a bunch of different things here. We already got a couple comments on some stuff tonight. Booker, KD points. I don't know if we're gonna do much of that tonight. Although, if you have a thought, Joe, more than
Against the
welcome.
Pels, against is that game even or wait, is that the game you're talking about tomorrow against the Pelicans? I don't even think do we even have lines up yet?
Probably, I don't know.
I don't
the
know.
The answer is maybe. We'll see. All right. Uh, Sports betting culture, is it ruining sports?
There you go.
I mean, it's just like it's not the most uplifting culture as people who do work as betting analysts. You especially. I don't consider myself like like that. It's not my primary thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm not somebody who is trying to get people to tail on my picks. I could care less if people tail my picks or not. Like I'm gonna make them, and if people want to tail them, fine. If people don't, whatever. If you're gonna tell them and be an asshole about it, then which we'll talk about, like that then that's something that we can sort of pick apart. But as someone who loves sports, bets on sports, has a career doing this, do you think these two things can exist long term? Just the culture that we're in, where sports betting is so prevalent and it's annoying a section of sports fans who don't care for it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, they can exist and they're going to exist because there's money. Like that's the thing. Like everybody, like at the end of the day, there's money involved with it. And right now, even with the legalization, it's what half the states roughly, like give or take, have legalized it. I
Sure.
think that I think that honestly, a lot of the problem right now is that because it's not federally accepted, right? And not every state has it. I think it's actually a little bit more difficult to go through some of the nuances, right? Every state has different rules. Every state has different offerings. Every state has different books. And I think that makes it a lot more difficult because there isn't any type of oversight. It's still like the wild wild west out here. I know that a lot of people, it's like they would go to Vegas for like the big games, like the Super Bowl, the like March Madness, whatever. And you don't have to do that now. You could sit your ass on your couch, which is awesome, and have probably a better experience, which I think is a good thing, right? I do think that there is like a little bit of give and take with kind of what the situation is, though, because as people kind of want like a certain level of honorability, right? Because they look at this and they say, they were talking about this on Circles Off, and they were saying how, some people have this expectation. You see these ads, like the FanDuel ads, the DraftKings ads on TV, right?
Mhm.
And it's like right after it is a Target ad or a Walmart ad. And you think of it as like, all right, well, like there should be a level of accountability. There should be a level of, like stand up inness, right? And it should be kind of important, right? And I think that one of the problems is that because there isn't a little bit more oversight and there's different regulations in every state, it makes it more difficult. And I think that gives a little bit of the angst. And I think that that's what makes some of the culture a little bit different because you don't have that same level of like organization. And then when you tie it into the sports, people are saying, well, like I care about this because this sport, like because I bet on it. And I think that's good in some things, right? Like at least from like an attention perspective, right? I think some leagues are probably growing specifically because of sports betting. I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing where people say, I don't care about this game at all. All I care about is prop.
Mm,
There's
yeah.
like a miss like you're missing some of the issues, you're missing some of the big picture items here, and that's what I think is the kind of the issue in with betting culture and sports.
At a time where we're increasingly losing humanity, I don't want that to happen. I
Yeah,
don't want it to be where because you and I would consider reasonable people where I can watch a game I'm not betting on. I do it all the time.
yeah,
And I could watch a game just to want to watch the game, just to see how this player plays. And I could have zero betting or fantasy implications.
yes.
There are people who don't want to do that. They only want to
Yeah,
watch games they bet on. And then there are people who don't watch sports and just bet on them and are successful at doing that. I think there are a number of different things here. I feel like the two things are going to continue to coexist because you said it, money. It has to at this point. But I don't want to lose the humanity of it at a time where we're just losing the humanity of a lot of different things
yeah,
that is pretty worrisome if you just look around you and pay attention to what's going on in the news on a day-to-day basis. Like I don't want people to look at athletes as just props. You and I try not to do that. At the same time, betting is betting. This has been going on forever. There's been scandals forever. We're going to keep hearing about more scandals with the legalization of it also. Like there's just a lot that comes with it. And I do wonder how do these two things continue to coexist? Because ultimately they have to.
yeah. And I think somebody just left a comment here, and I think that it's a great point, right? Where there are a lot of people that don't bet, or and just watch the game, and like my
Let
dad
me
is one of them.
I'll read this for audio because I'll throw the audio up later. JWC21, thank you for your comments. And if anybody else is watching, please do leave a comment. We will throw it up, especially if it's a super chat. Yes and no, there's plenty of people who don't bet and just watch, but there is a market to possibly be successful. Joe, continue your point, please.
Yeah, so I think that, like my dad, for example, doesn't bet, loves to watch the Yankees, loves to watch the Giants, what
Yeah.
have you.
Yeah.
And I think that that is absolutely the case. Like there are people that care about just the sport. They care about their team, whatever. I do think that with, some of the betting aspect of it, it's like maybe I am like a little bit more inclined to watch a game if I have some money on it. Or, like if
Sure.
I'm going to a game, then like maybe I want to have a little bit of extra skin in the game. Maybe I can get my
Right.
tickets for free.
It's
You know,
at that point it becomes somewhat of an investment.
yeah.
So that
And I
makes
think
sense.
I think the problem is that a lot of people treat it like entertainment and but still expect to win. And look, at the end of the day, we're pretty sharp people in terms of what our betting is, what our records are, and so on and so forth, right? That's not common. And I think a lot of the problem is that people expect to be able to bet on these games based on like whatever their knowledge is. Like the joke lately has been you got to dig to your ball knowledge, right? And it's like it's bullshit. Like there's so much more to it, right? So I think the problem is that people think that like it can be entertaining and then like they don't really need to do the work to
Yes.
make a profit. And
Yes.
if you go in there and you understand you're like, "Hey, I'm going to bet on a bunch of games this year and I'm probably going to lose like $1,000 this year." And you're cool with that. Like that's fine. Like
You're
maybe
getting
for
to a
you,
point I really want to
yeah,
get
like
to.
maybe for you, like if you think about it this way, like your entertainment cost is $1,000, right? For the year. And it makes you happy. You're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, you're gonna hit a parlay, you're gonna lose a couple by like a leg, and you're like, oh, I wish I watered it down, fucking bullshit term. And then like you're gonna go with it from there, right? So I think that if you treat it like entertainment, it's okay. The problem is that people don't treat it like entertainment, or they do, they want to, but they also want to win. And
Yes.
that's not entertainment. Like,
Yes.
winning is fun, sure, but you gotta put a totally different level of work in to win and be profitable long term on a sustainable rate. And I think that's the thing because you can hit a parlay, you can get lucky.
Sure.
It's a lottery ticket. And like
Mhm.
that can make you profitable for the year. But that doesn't mean that you are going to be a long-term winning bettor. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. And I think that that's something that brings a lot of angst out with sports betting and how it ties to sports, because people don't care at a certain point about the game if their bets didn't hit. And they're going to say like, I got nothing out of this. That was a shitty game. And it's like, that might have been the best game of the year. It's not my fault that you lost
Right.
your same game parlay.
Right.
It was the best game of the year. And I think people forget that when they have money on the line and they're not watching the game for the game and they're watching the game for their bet.
I think there's a lot there. One, I think it's dangerous when you go into it being like, "Hey, I'm gonna turn this into a side hustle."
Yes.
Because then you're opening yourself up to really disappointing yourself because in order to make it a side hustle, and there are some people perhaps with bigger aspirations to that, but in order to make it to a side hustle, like the amount that you have to win, I mean, it's a lot. And there's a reason why even sharp bettors, like super sharp ones, are hitting like just over 50% of the time. And in some cases less if they're good at like plus money plays and parlays and things of that nature. And if you're good at just spotting the sort of advantages in that regard. And then there's another element of there are a lot of people who bet who they can't handle losing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who bet. You talked about the lack of information that some people approach us with, like they just go out on a whim or whatever. And there are some people whose intuition is crazy. They could just look at something and be like, "I think this is going to win," and it happens 54% of the time or whatever, and that would be great. But there are a lot of people who bet who absolutely cannot handle losing. You and I hear from some of these people because if we have a best bet on Action Network and it doesn't hit, they'll DM us being like, "You cost me $4,500." And that's when you have to call 1-800-GAMBLER. Like
Call the number. Call the number.
I'm dead seriously. Like
Yeah.
if you're tailing somebody with that amount of money or with a big amount, like a large amount of money, and you're pissed about it, like you have to, if you're gonna bet, you have to bet what you're willing to lose. This is
Yeah.
why I'm not a $100 bettor. There are people who are very good at it. I'm not somebody who, like, I don't want to lose money in that way. I'd rather lose it in like the S&P 500 or the stock market because I know it'll bounce back up at some point.
Yeah.
If I keep betting this prop, it's not the same. Like I don't look at betting the same as investing. It's not the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Some people do, I don't.
And I think that's one of the concerns or one of the issues that people, like ROI, I think is a decent measure of how you're performing. Right. I think, but at the same time, I think that there's a mix, there's nuance to that. There's nuance to your record. Right. So some people are like, well, like you have to win 52 point whatever 3% of your bets, right?
Sure.
That's betting minus 110. Basically, minus 110s just like barely even exist if you're betting like anything that's not a side or a total, right? Props are now basically like minus 115 on each side. And even then, you're getting some variable markets. You're looking at futures, you're looking at this, you're looking at that. So there's some people that say, like, oh, well, like I win over 50% of my bets, whatever, 55% of my bets. Awesome, great. You're probably profitable, maybe. I don't really know. But then you're also looking at how many units did you win? Then how many dollars did you win? And then your ROI. And ROI is an interesting term because ROI is normally used for like investing, right? Except the difference is that for most of these, like if you're betting futures, ROI is maybe like a little bit more relevant. But for the most part, you're putting a bet in, you're getting an answer within 24 hours.
Right. Right.
So ROI is like
It's
an
not a
interesting.
10-year play where like you're saving up to buy a house and pay a
Exactly.
mortgage. It's not that kind of investment.
It's like, yeah, like one day my ROI is going to be over 100%, right?
Yeah.
Another day my ROI is going to be like minus 50%. And you're like,
Right.
"Well, what the fuck's going on?" But it's like, that's not really a great measure for like how you're performing, right? So, and I just think that there's such an interesting level of nuance to like whether you're going to win, what you're putting out there. And then you're right. Like if people are just like, I always say, do your own research, right? It's
Yes.
something, like growing up, like not growing up, but when I first started like having a job and like starting investing in like crypto, for example. So that was back in like 2015, 2016, right?
Oh,
And
you were early.
I was early.
You
Yeah.
still do you still?
Yeah, I'm a BTC truther,
Oh
but
boy.
so so um I bought all the shit coins before, and it's like kind of one of those. It's like our joke was do your own research. We'd be like, love this one, but do your own research. And that was the thing, right? And I think that when people tell you, and part of what I try to do in my work that I put out through like the Action Network on X and in the Huddle and through my
Yes.
podcast, the Cash That podcast, is
Mhm.
I try to give like somewhat extensive analysis. It's not going to be all the layers of the onion because number one, it's going to be a little bit long winded. And then number two, it's uh it's obnoxious. A lot of it's like numbers, right? So I try to make it as consumable, digestible, but also to a point where you could say, I know the sources that he's looking at. I could go use that source or like at least some of the publicly available ones. And I can get an understanding to try to improve my own capping process. So, Joe put out this play. He cited, say, 3 different data metrics that he likes or like things that he likes in terms of maybe scheme, rotation, usage. And then you could take that and you go, I don't know, like maybe I don't know if I like that angle. Like I'm going to go look into that, but I'm
Sure.
going to go there's some other thing that I'm thinking about, right? So then they might go, all right, but the other thing that they're thinking about is because it's something that I wrote in a different thing where I said I used this particular stat. And then people can get better at it themselves. And I think that's part of the value. I think that there obviously is some value in people like just getting a pick. And they like just saying, all right, like we like Josh Hart over 10.5 rebounds today. And they don't want any analysis. They're just like, I just want to know the pick. I like to say it's like, well, a lot of the reason why I like this is because I think Cat is probably going to sit, and this is why X, Y, and Z, and then a couple other data points. So it's something that you can learn from, as well as get like a winning bet, is to also have a little bit of the understanding and like a little bit of the onion being peeled back. Maybe not all of it, but at least some of it. And I think that that's some of the value that we can provide to try to make it more responsible for people to be betting their money.
Let's go to Sean's comment here. Thank you, Sean, who I obviously know bets a ton.
Yeah.
I think, but it is very responsible. I think with legalization and more average folks getting involved, people need to understand the books aren't open for people to make money. They're open for the book to make money. It's hard to win. And for people who aren't familiar with the saying, the house always wins, this is pretty much what Sean is dead on referring to. And I think that's important to understand. Like there's a lot of people who you'll see them on Instagram, you'll see them on YouTube, you'll see them on all these different platforms being like, this is how I got rich off of sports betting. And this is how I did. And it's like, one, it's probably bullshit. One, it's probably bullshit. But two, like those are the things that are kind of dangerous. And it also leads me to something that you just said that I want to get a little bit deeper on. It's just the analysis of it from analysts. So there are people who give out picks. There are people who sell picks even, but there are people who provide, like you provide analysis of these picks. And I do as well. But in a more low-key way comparatively is what I would say.
Sure.
Cause I kind of just, I'll write the article and then it'll just like, if it hits, it hits, it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's just sort of what it is. Like, but I don't have like a business around my picks, so to speak. There are people who do. Do you think part of the culture problems that we're talking about where it can get pretty toxic in terms of the innards of it, do you think some of that could even stem from how the analysis is brought out? Because there are analysts like you who are fair-minded and be like, yo, this person has hit this in over 7 of 10. This person's out. This is why he can hit this over. The way that they're playing against this team, there's good, like all these different schematic things as well. And then there are other people saying, you have to absolutely bet this or you're going to lose your mortgage, bet the house, blah, 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 blah. Like all these different things, like they're very aggressive about it. And I don't think that's very productive and helpful either.
No, I mean, I think one of the problems is that, right? Like in theory, so this is part of why I try to at least explain it and give tools. So it's more than just like the pick and just saying, hey, like tail me on this, right? The biggest thing going on right now is everybody wants to bet an SGP. Everybody wants a lottery ticket. If you give out a fucking 10-1, people are like, that's not long enough. Like it's actually crazy. I'm like, what do you mean? Like you're not cool with that? Like that's like if that hits, that's awesome. That's a great bet, right? And it's not supposed to hit like either, right?
Even a 2-1, like if
Yeah,
something is not even fully two, if it's like plus 180 and it's a 2-legger, Like, and if it hits, that's great.
It's not
That's
supposed to hit.
fantastic.
Like,
Right.
it's supposed to have less than 50% chance to hit, right? And I think the problem is the way that people consume it and the way that people wanna bet it. And they absolutely shove SGPs down your throat and like lottery tickets down your throat. Every time you log into like a DraftKings or a fan, well, actually, it depends, right? Because some books we're getting no boosts. Some books have been primed like pretty good. And you get a couple here and there, even if you're limited, say like $5, something like that. But you're getting a ton of boosts, right, to go bet stuff. And it's interesting because even then, like, right, like these books that do all the marketing that give you these boosts, if you go and build like an SGP on one book, right, or I'll use this example, right? Last night in the Lakers Mavericks game, FanDuel had a like 35% or 30% live boost, right? If you looked at what the odds were, like the live odds and the player props on FanDuel versus like DraftKings or something like that, they were probably about 30% lower. So, like, those
Hmm.
are things that you have to kind of consider. And you're saying, like,
Mhm.
look, like they're trying to do this. Like they're trying to like this is what it is. Like they want you to bet on these things and they want you to take long shots. They want you to take these bigger bets. And when people go, like there was, I'm not even going to use the guy's name because it was so fucking ridiculous. But there was a guy on Twitter saying, you know, if you bet straight bets, it's like flipping a coin. I could flip a coin 8 times out of 10. Like I've done it before. It's what are we talking about, dude? Like, so
Does the person's name start with a T?
it's yeah, there's something to it. But
Okay. But I gotta who you're talking about. But
yeah, I
like,
think you
yeah,
know who I'm talking about. But
yeah, I think that's just irresponsible. We have
yeah,
speaking of irresponsibility, we have a couple of responsible comments that we're gonna put up right now. JWC checks back in. The problem is people just blindly tell and don't do their own research. This is what Joe you were just talking about, and also
yeah,
says I've been tailing Penguin for a while, but I always do my own research on his picks. I imagine you do that with other people as well. And then we have Philip Poxup. I might have read that awkwardly, but you could tell me how to sound that out in the comments. There's no responsible way of betting in some states or countries outside of the U.S. due to Texas and bookies offer, and for most people, there is no difference between analysis and pure pick with no explanation. It is, but with this season of NBA, I feel like, and there's actually more to this comment that doesn't that doesn't appear on the screen, but it says I feel like it becomes more of a game of luck, not like it used to be even last year. I do feel like NBA betting has been very wonky this year, but that's like for
yeah,
a different discussion. But to your point, I want to say for a lot of people, yeah, they kind of just want the pick and that's it. Like they won't even read the analysis. It's like,
yeah,
what's this person tailing? Whether they know the person or not, they just look at them like you're purported to be an expert. The site you work at calls you an expert, or you do call yourself an expert. So therefore, I'm going to follow you with more money than I could afford to lose. And here it is. Again, if you could afford to lose, then whatever. Like if you have it like that and you're cool with losing $1,000, you could do what you want with your money.
yeah,
But if you're putting up like 2,500 on a random person's pick and you're DMing them after just because it missed by a couple points, not that this
yeah.
hasn't happened to me before, but like that's reckless behavior. That's
Yeah.
like 1-800 gambler type shit.
And
Like those
and
commercials are for you if
And
that's the
and I think to be clear, like when we give out picks, like we want to win the bet, right? Like it's
right.
not like everything I give out, I'm betting. Like I'm not like it's not
Yes.
something that
Yes.
maybe at a varying degree, and you can track that. Like I'm fully trackable. I'm third party verified in the Action Network. I can't edit my bets after they go in there. They're in there. They're in there, right? I I just think that there's a lot of issues with the way that people want to consume it, and you're putting a lot of faith in people that you don't know. And like I understand that like if you're selling a service, like you're expected to be profitable, right? And I think that's fine, but I also think that that's why it's important to like offer something more than just the pick. And
Yes.
it's like
Yes. The
there's
process
more
is
than
very
that,
important.
you know?
Yes.
So it's like even in my Discord, right? Part of the value, besides the fact that we're winning, but that's not the point, right? That's not the point of this. The point the point of it is that like in there, like if you're in there, you have primary access to me. So it's like you can message and I'll answer. Like you're gonna have a better, like a more streamlined process to building your own plays, talking about some of the plays, going through some of the things that I like or I don't like. And I think that that's important. And you're gonna get priority access to some of the stuff. So look, I think that one of the things too is like when you're doing some of these services or you're moving your picks around, some of the conversation and some of the like the thought process is, well, like how do you do this at scale? And it like sometimes it like I think that's just part of it. It's like sometimes people are gonna be able to get every single thing, and sometimes people are gonna like not get every single thing. It just kind of depends. It's like sometimes people are gonna get a play because you were up late working. Other times, like you're gonna get a play because you were like, or you're gonna miss a play because you were busy at work. You were doing something else, right? And I think that that's part of it. But at the same time, if you are learning new skills that you wouldn't be getting otherwise, where if like you're just subscribing to a pick service where there's just a pick and no analysis, you're never going to be able to really duplicate or try to replicate it yourself where you
Yeah.
can learn and like understand with any type of nuance. Like if somebody just goes, here's a lotto, like here's this, here's that, like number one, like not the best for long-term winning, right? But like you're gonna get nothing out of that moving
Yeah.
forward. Like you're just either in or you're out.
Yeah, the process is so important because then you could see, all right, one, if you agree with it, but two, if something fails, like if everything aligned and the person shot 4 for 15, the person just shot
Yeah.
4 for 15. Don't DM the person who gave you the pick in a nasty ass way if you can't handle it. And most of all, and we'll get to this now, don't DM the athlete.
I always think that's so unless it's Kevin
Leave
Durant because it's funny as fuck. Like
leave the athlete, leave them alone. All right, leave them alone. If you want to show them some love because they got you an over before, I think they might be okay with that. They might prefer you leave them alone too.
yeah.
We have a couple of other comments here of the hammer, which I mean, that can go any number of different ways. But in betting talk, we know what that means.
Yeah.
Sports betting Twitter is ruining sports betting, which we're going to get to right now. He adds it as a cesspool, and then you Capper Sports. Thank you for checking in. This is why I do my show with the screen share, so they can see my thought process and my sources. I've been using more screen share actually, but that's mostly for like boxing film things and things of
Yeah.
that nature. Okay, growing tension between bettors, analysts, and athletes. So you have bettors who in this case would not be like analysts, content
Yeah. Like just
creators,
betting people. People that are betting.
just
Yeah.
people who bet, right? Consumers, we could say in this regard. Analysts, that would be you, me, people we work with, people we've talked about, and then athletes who probably shouldn't be betting at least on
Probably not.
at least on their own sport.
Yeah.
But
Josh
like,
Hart cracks me up when he talks about betting like baseball or football or whatever.
yeah, like let's talk about the culture of this a little bit. I think this is a big problem with it, where like you can't like we might be too far gone in this regard, but there are just so many, not so many, but there are a section of people who like will DM athletes
Yeah.
ahead of time after the fact, like, yo, I need you to get over 21 and a half. I need you to do this, that, and the third. Hey, can you please score under this? And like, that's just not reasonable behavior. And it's
Yeah.
like, I also don't like, because there are athletes who seem to approach this in a dehumanizing way where they will at the athlete be, oh, this person couldn't get us over, whatever. And that's kind of inviting a community of people, of which a lot of these people have. Like, we're all trying to build community, right?
Yeah.
They have a community of people who then like just attack the athlete, whether it's voluntarily or involuntarily.
Yeah.
So I guess where are you at as someone who like, you're in the middle of this in terms of you're an analyst, just like I am.
Yeah.
You obviously, to a larger degree in this world. Just where are you at with the culture and all these dynamics that I'm sort of outlining here?
I think the one thing that's harder, and I think I've gotten better at it as I've gotten like older. Somebody said, I just saw this comment from Sean. Terry Rozier is the only one who would answer my DMs.
Sean's a Heat fan, so
That's
that's why the joke is funny.
So no, okay, so
and he's joking.
Yeah, I think
that
I think one of the things that I've gotten better at as I've gotten older, right? And I'm pretty online, but at the same time, you just don't have to engage with a lot of like the shit that's out there,
Right.
right? Like
I try not to.
just because it's out there doesn't mean that you have to engage. Like there's been like spaces going on, there's been this going on, there's conversations, there's discourse, whatever. You just
There's
like
beef in spaces,
yeah,
actually,
like you just
like
like
beef
don't
between like
yeah, like
handicappers.
you just don't have to get involved. Like, it's just not like I'm like this is not my problem. Like get the fuck out of here, right? So there's there's just there's just a spot where I think you can get like too entrenched in whatever is going on, right? And you can get too wrapped up in whatever's going on. And I think that's what happens like when people are DMing like me, they're DMing athletes, like they're DMing you, like whatever, or like they're just tweeting at us. And like I'll just
Usually after a loss, never after a
yeah,
win.
yeah,
Almost
like
never after a win. There's never
you
a
know,
thank you. You know what I
no, like I
mean?
got a couple today, so that was cool. But
Yeah,
it's like
I heard from a couple from like a couple like two people, legitimately a couple on a prop that I missed yesterday. It was a whiff
yeah.
by like PJ Washington just did not
Oh
have
yeah,
it last
he
night.
just didn't have it.
I
Yeah.
heard nothing about Knicks first half -5.5 today.
Nothing.
No,
No,
absolutely
it's
nothing.
because it was expected, dude. It was expected.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
It was a straight. It was
They,
a coin flip, dude.
right,
So,
right, right.
like,
They didn't cover the game, by the way. They only
no,
covered the first
They didn't.
half.
Only first half. So it was actually pretty sharp. So, um, but I think that you just number one, you just don't have to engage with a lot of stuff, and
Right.
then number two, I think that there obviously is going to be some of this, right? And it's an interesting situation because normally, like, like if I treat it right, the like being an analyst or giving out picks, it's work. It's just an interesting situation because your consumer, like your customer, it's weird because when I do stuff for the Action Network, I'm not getting paid by the bettors. I'm getting paid by a company, right?
Right.
When I put out stuff in my Discord, I'm getting paid directly like from my consumers.
Direct by the consumer.
And
Yep.
I think that, if they have a gripe, I think it's a little bit more valid, right? Because like they're paying me directly. Um,
And that's the community you're
and that's
building
the
as opposed
community.
to the people that you're working.
Ex-
I don't want to say for, but you get what I'm saying. In
a hun-
partnership with.
100%,
Yeah.
right? And I think that like as long as you're getting as long as you're doing the best that you can, like you're trying to be transparent, you're trying to win some money for people. I think that's the most important thing. And you want to be profitable. And I think that generally, um, like I think generally people want to be profitable. They want to make money for their people, right? And one of the concerns is obviously is, like if you are selling a service and you're not scaling it properly or like you're making it to a point where like you're not profitable, right? There is definitely like an ethical question, I think, if you don't have an edge or like if you're not making money like long term and there's no real reason to see it turn around, it's like why are you giving these out? What's the point here?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're selling a service it's not really entertainment at that point, right? Like it's not like you're giving a dance, like you're doing a dance or something like that. It's you're giving out a service that's not performing. So I think that there are some questions around that. And I think that the problem is that for bettors, right, for consumers of this content, it's very very difficult to sort through what the situation is, right? It's very difficult for people to sort through and say this person's legit, this person's not legit, this person's good, or like, this person I think, maybe they're having a rough stretch right now, but they're going to turn like I expect them to turn it around because of their long-term, results. The other thing is people realistically people can have an edge, right? And you can have an edge for a variety of different reasons, whether it's the way that you cap the game, whether it's the way like some of the data that you're looking at, some of the information, maybe you have better information,
Sure.
whatever the situation is, right? A lot of times those edges dry up and they might dry up if it's like a micro edge, like maybe it dries up in like a week or two. If it's like a longer, like a bigger edge, because you have some sort of like a particular model that's targeting a particular thing. Maybe it lasts for a season, maybe it lasts for 2 seasons, maybe it lasts for 3 seasons, right? It's not always going to be around. And the problem is that when people talk about like long-term profitability or like an evolution of that type of thing where they're saying no, like I'm profitable on based on X, Y, and Z. The problem is that sometimes these edges dry up and it's like the conversation about giving a player a contract, right? If you have somebody who has performed really well, it's honestly, it's kind of like the Jimmy Butler situation, right?
Oh boy.
Jimmy Butler, okay, but for real, right? So, or like even Klay Thompson more recently, you have this history of
Uh-huh.
performing really well. Are you getting paid, or like should people pay you for what you did or for what you're going to do?
Mhm.
And I think that having like some of a background helps because you go like, well, he's not a loser, like he's not losing, right? But if moving forward, like the next like 3 months, 4 months, you don't win, you don't, or like whatever the situation is, why do we need to think that you're going to turn it around? And I think that it makes it very difficult for people because of the way that it can be marketed, right? So if you have a service, or so to speak, and you've been selling this for however many years, or maybe you've been selling it for a year, and let's say you hit one monster parlay for like 300 units, right? Whatever, insane number, right?
Jesus.
But like, let's say you did that, right?
Sure.
You can fucking market this forever because
That
you're going to say like, I'm plus 300 units
it's
lifetime.
like it's like dropping a viral short
Yes.
or a viral video.
And it's
And you
like,
just have it on your stats, on your
yes.
resume, if you will, for the
And,
rest of time.
and it's awesome. Like, that's great. Like, but at the same time, it's like, how many times are you going to go hit the lottery?
Right. You gotta do it again at some
But
point.
if you're putting stuff together where it's like, hey, like some of the work that we do together, some of the content that we're doing even now, and like you can understand and you say like, all right, like I get what's going on in their brain. I see the way that they work. I see what they're doing. I understand their process on a daily basis. I'm seeing them like add nuance to it where they're using stats from here one day, they're pulling a stat from here a different day, they're looking at this other thing, they mix in a little bit of film, they mix in some matchup analysis. Hit rate isn't the only thing that they use, right? There's a little bit more nuance to that. And I think that's what makes and separates some people from the situation, like from the rest of the pack. The problem is it's work again for the bettors to do that.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the things that's hard, but it's also, it goes back again to kind of like do your own research. But because of like the ability for people to do this, like, I don't know, like
People
20
might not
years
have
ago,
time.
like you couldn't, 20 years ago, though, yeah, not only would you not have time to kind of do
Yeah.
the research for yourself and figure out who's winning or who's not winning,
Yeah.
but like 20 years ago, you couldn't just set up a service that fast.
Yeah. You were kind of going out on a whim.
Like there's no way to
Like
really do it,
you were waiting on like dial up to get stats, if anything. Like you
Yeah, yeah,
like you didn't have everything readily available in that way. And now we have too much information. I think
exactly.
like there's a lot there. And I think to me, the analysis is more important.
Yeah,
The analysis is more important because like you're getting a feel for the process and like the long term return on investment, if you will, if you want to use that term. Like that's more important than just hitting a sick
100.
parlay just once.
Yeah, and
And then the athlete piece of this I want to hit also, just because like we're getting increasingly more athletes who are like, I don't give a shit about your parlays, and they don't have to. You know what I
no.
mean? And then there are other athletes like uh as someone who covers boxing on this channel and in general, Action Network Post also. Keyshawn Davis, before his last fight with Dennis Berencic, was doing a media workout and telling reporters to bet on him, to
Yeah,
bet on him to win by knockout, which he did.
he did it
Like
'cause it's
he did,
cool. Like he's like, that's awesome. Yeah,
like that. So, but I think tension, while not universal, I do want people to be careful in that regard, just because like one, leave the athletes alone, and two, the athletes also got to be smarter about how they move, because now we're seeing like more
yeah,
things pop up. Like New Orleans is apparently college basketball team apparently had some players that are being investigated, or whatever the case may be. Jonte Porter, we obviously know about that.
yeah.
Terry Rozier seems to be okay, much to
I
Sean's
think so.
chagrin in the comments. But like, and all these different things. But I think the culture, the toxicity that plays out online, and Twitter is not everywhere, but you are seeing this in places beyond just Twitter. You're seeing this on YouTube or whatever. And I don't like when consumers and even at times analysts look at players like they're literally props. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like they're literally just, hey, get me my shit or else. Like
Yeah.
that's not a healthy way to go about this either.
No, and I think you're kind of hitting the nail on the head, right? Like there's a certain degree where I think the players probably should maybe appreciate it a little bit more because it is like it literally is impacting their wallet.
It's
Like you
giving
can't
them that's
like
yes, it's
like,
it's valid. Like
you can't.
players could that's the other thing. I am sympathetic to players and all these different things, but at the end of the day, also like you're making more money because of this, at least in some regard.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you're able to slap FanDuel on to, court sides, like the sideline of different arenas. The fact that like Heat games and Bulls games and other teams play on the FanDuel Sports Network. And the
Yes.
fact that every single fight that I watch, every single big fight that I watch, whether it's boxing, MMA, and glory kickboxing or whatever the case may be, there's DraftKings ties, there's Bet365, there's other sports books across the UK. I was watching the Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol card this past week. There were Bet365 ads every single break.
Yes.
You
And
know,
I think I think that's actually like a little bit of like the bigger issue, right? Like I have like my own issues with some of the commercials that we have, right?
there
So
are a
it's
lot
like
of
it's
them, to be fair.
endless,
Yes.
fucking commercials.
If you're somebody who
Dude,
watches,
it was like second to medical shit, which I
yes,
think is also like bullshit for its own like for a totally different variety of
if
reasons,
you're
right?
watching sports and as somebody who, if you're watching sports and does not bet at all, you're
Yeah.
probably like, oh god,
It's the
another one
fucking
of
worst.
these,
Yeah.
so I get that. I'm sympathetic to that.
Yeah. So you're getting a lot of that. You're getting like and the thing that I think is tough is these are like they literally have national broadcasts and they're talking about the betting lines and it's not fucking legal in every state.
That's true. Yeah.
I think
Important to
it's
some. It's more than important to some now. Now it's
yeah,
just straight up like,
like it,
and
like
they're making picks on
yeah.
every show. Like,
I would say that like football, I think it's even more prevalent because it's like
yes,
everybody like so many people are betting
that's the
football,
most
right?
gambled on sport.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like football is super fun to gamble on as somebody who doesn't do a ton of football content, but obviously
Yeah.
watches football because if you work in sports, and I have for many years, how could you have not? How could
Yeah,
you
like
not watch football?
you're going to
Like,
watch football.
yeah,
So I think
kind
that
of have
there's
to, honestly.
yeah, so I think that, it's just the amount that it's like shoved down people's throats. It definitely doesn't help with some of the gambling stuff, right? And then it's like you're pushing these parlays, you're including like casino in a lot of the apps, right? So I don't know. I just think that like some of the issues are a little bit more like wider reaching and it probably requires a little bit of regulation. And I think that's some of the issues. But athletes, I think, need to be okay with it to a degree. I don't think that you need to like it's like if you called up my job and you were
Yeah.
like, hey, like we don't like the job that Joe is doing like on this case, like whatever, like, or it's like whatever. Like people it'd be like, what do you mean? But like I think at the same time, it's a little it's a little unhinged to just go like DMing athletes saying like
Yeah.
fuck you, blah blah
That's
blah.
that's that's what the number is for. Let's get to a
Yeah.
couple more comments, and we'll get to the last few minutes of this. We had one from JWC who says right here, let's keep it real. As long as these cappers are getting money from their subs to their dub club and Discord, that's all the majority of them care about, to be honest. And then he said, shout out to DeMar for cashing my partner.
That's funny
DeMar
as fuck.
DeRozan, which I just
I,
love the juxtaposition there.
I think
Also,
I think that point goes to go ahead. You
yeah,
can
and
lead into
then
it.
and then we have Philip Hawks up. I still think I'm reading that like a dork. Sorry for butchering the name. I feel like I am, but thank you for tuning in and commenting. I appreciate it. I just knocked over my fan just now. I don't know if you guys heard that.
No.
I feel like there is an exception to DMing an athlete when you bet attempts and busts, like Halliburton doesn't throw buzzer beater on early quarters just to not mess his stats. Besides that is stupid.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, I just don't DM athletes, but also athletes like athletes often, and while I defend them, they want to have their cake and eat it too. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like they do want to like just have all the rewards of something, but at the same time not like have to deal with some of the things that they are paid to deal with. UCapper Sports says statistical model, advanced analytics, trends, situational analysis are part of the process. I'm a straight better, and my personality isn't quote unquote fun. So I don't have as big a following as a lot of guys. Hey, I mean, look, as somebody who doesn't have biggest following either, I could identify with that. Just going about your business.
Yeah, no, I think the main thing is like, you gotta stick to what is good for you. And to a degree, I think part of the problem is that um, you have to be good at marketing what you do. You have to be your own biggest like spokesperson, right? And at the same time, I don't I think there's like this over reliance on it's like well, how many followers do you have? How many this do you have? How many that do you have? Obviously, like you need like clicks, you need like engagement, like you need to know that people care about your work or support your work, whatever. Um, at the same time, it's like I fucking like I'm not getting X checks like that are like outrageous right now because I have whatever like 30,000 followers. Like it's not a big deal. Like it doesn't matter, right?
I don't care. I don't care what the profession is. I will die on the hill that the work is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like even though we're in this era where like you need a following, quote unquote, you need subscribers, and a lot of that. Like, look, subscribers matter. The amount doesn't as much. The
Yeah. Like
people who continue to come back and really, really mess with you, care about your stuff, actually like talk to you on a regular basis, like that matters more. That's what
yeah.
we're all trying to build. That's what I'm trying to build. That's what you're trying to build. Same thing on
Yeah.
Twitter. Like the follow number doesn't matter as much as like building the actual community within that. So I would hope people just don't chase blind numbers in that way. But we're also in an era where content in many ways, like people just want to put numbers on it to deem it successful. And it's like, is the process, to you Capper Sports' point, to what we've been talking about, is the process there? Is the process fair? Is the work you're putting in valid? Is it good? Those are the type of things that matter first and foremost to me than just the numbers behind it. And also like getting it right is great because you want to get it right more often than you don't. But at the same time, if if that is like all people sort of look at you for, is just getting things right, then there's going to be a price that comes with that as well when you eventually get things wrong, because everybody does.
Yeah. And I do think that there is a degree of like, you know, like people want to get paid. Like people want to like promote their brand. They want people to subscribe to their work, right? And I think that obviously like having a little bit of a personality or like your face out there, I think helps. I think it makes a difference. I think it makes it a little bit more like personable. Like people relate to you. Like we're on this show, we're talking to each other. Like you can see how we're reacting. You can see the way that we're moving, like whatever. I don't think that it makes your content better or worse to not have that that this is fun. I'll get to that comment in a minute. But so I think it depends, right? Like I agree. Like I think that you're like with this what you Capper Sports kind of putting out here, it's like, your vibe attracts your tribe, whatever. And like it's great. Like you can have a really good community. That's awesome. And I think that's important, right? Like that's the community that you want to build. That's the community that you want to associate with. So it's like if you feel like you have to really change the way that what you're doing to fit in, or because like you think that this is the trending thing, it's not even going to come off as genuine, is the thing.
Yes.
So it's like
Don't
for
follow
me,
trends if you're not really like
yeah,
into it.
I mostly bet straights. I bet a good amount of futures. I like long shots. I like triple doubles. I do like a lotto every so often. I do
Yep.
some parlays, like whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not like those are like a smaller part of what I do from a betting perspective. I like am not going to just go and be like, all right, like I'm going to bet a parlay every day. Like it's
I
not going to
can't.
happen.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
can't do
not
that.
going to happen.
Yeah.
I will leave if you put a boost in my account. I'm not going to use like I just don't. I'm not necessarily going to use it. Like
Yeah.
maybe I will one day or a different day, but like I'm not going to use it every day. And I think that it's important to stay true to yourself. And I think that I think that will obviously you know help you build your community in the way that you want.
I hate you so much, Sean. You Capper, you Capper says, I'm happy with my community because it isn't toxic.
Yeah.
You Capper, like we're here. We're here. We're trying to build non-toxic communities, which isn't always the easiest, especially as somebody who talks about boxing as well as basketball. If you're new here, we do these live streams every week on NBA stuff. We'll do WNBA live streams when the season comes around. I'm actually going to put out a video next week on like, here's what to expect from this channel, because I still think people are kind of like not confused, but like are unclear as to what it is I'm trying to literally build
Yeah.
here. So I need to clear that up. I need to be more like more forthright in that way with people. So I'm happy that people came to check this out. We're gonna get to one final piece of this before leaving. No cash out button. This isn't the final piece, but I just want to put this comment up. I always pictured you as an Italian dude, LMAO, Joe Dellera.
So
Joe's not Italian, although the name,
I
I
am.
mean,
So I'm half Italian, I'm half
not full
Korean.
Italian is what I
Yeah.
meant to say.
So I'm
Yeah.
half Italian, half Korean. My dad's 100% Italian. My
Yes.
mom is 100% Korean.
Yes.
So we do have that mix. My running joke has always been that, like I can eat rigatoni with chopsticks, call it a day. It's fine, like we make it work. Like I normally, if it's like lo mein, for example, you would eat it with chopsticks. I can do it with a fork and a spoon. Spaghetti, hand me chopsticks, I'm surviving. Like I can adapt. It's versatile. And I also think that it's very important to, maintain that level of diversity as we move into the future. So,
That is a great,
but it is,
wow. Wow.
no, but it is
You
funny that
making that joke and not me is fantastic. Also, what's the weirdest mix of food you've had? Like, has there been a day where like your parents are cooking and your dad makes something super Italian and your mother makes something super Korean and they just combine it? Like,
so my dad like doesn't really cook. It's so he's traditional Italian in that regard to a
okay.
degree, right?
Okay.
My dad's cooking is like slicing off the fucking block of sharp provolone, like that's
Mm.
his cooking, right? But my mom, it's funny because she got the sauce recipe from my great grandmother, and so she makes that. My great grandmother didn't give it to anybody else on my dad's side of the family, only my mom. And she got the meatball recipe too. My mom, I shit you not, she fries the meatballs with chopsticks. Like that's what she uses to like move them around in the
Really?
pan. Yeah, because she says it's easier. They're like, I mean, they're essentially tongs, right? So
Yeah.
that's what
That's
she's using. You got a little bit more control, a little bit more dexterity, and there is some value in whip it. I got my own wooden chopsticks. I got a pair of lightsaber chopsticks, so you never
wow.
know. You never know if you're eating in the dark.
You just
Like
reminded me I need to order some new tongs because my other
so.
ones got fucked up.
Well, there you
Yeah, we'll get to that. Some fun comments as
go.
well. All
Karen
right,
Spaghetti.
let's try to end this on a positive note, Joe. All right, what needs to happen for this sports betting culture to improve? Like, how do we sort of do our part as a community to help these dynamics out so that people are not being disrespectful towards athletes, so that bettors are getting good information and not being reckless with it, and so that the analysis coming from the analysts is also responsible, well thought out, all these different things. Like, how do we make this into a utopia? We probably won't, but we can try.
I think the main thing is just, staying true to yourself, putting out the work, and, trying to maintain a level of positivity, right? So, whether you're doing well or not, like you can let it be known. Like it's okay. Like you're not going to win every night. Like that's just not the way that
It's
it
not,
goes.
yes, it's not possible. I was
It's
1-3
impossible.
yesterday. I'm 1-0 today.
Yeah, like you can win
So
long term without being like you don't have to win 365 days out of the year. You
right,
can win a cut like
200 maybe
200 and you're
of
doing good.
365. Yeah,
So it really just depends. I think that that's important. I think that it's important to be like realistic. I think it's important to be transparent. I think that it's also, and when I say transparent, um, I think a lot of people like mistake transparency as like, well, like I have to post all my losses. Like I have to post this, I have to post that, like I have to do this.
sure.
And I think like, yeah, like sure. I think that also like if you're publicly tracked like the way that we are, the information's out there anyway. I just think like, like if you're
Which is
recapping a win, like if something
Mhm.
hits, like it's fun to celebrate a win with the people that bet it, the people that you follow, like that are following you, that you follow, whatever. Like that's fun. Like that's building community, right? I think that there's a difference between saying like there's no way to track me, there's no way to say like what I'm doing on a long-term scale and doing that, right? So I think that's important. I also think that just trying to foster relationships and build up the people that you think are doing it the right way is important. So, like if you have a good like we obviously have a good relationship, and like we're doing the show together because we think it's important, and we're trying to put out some of our thoughts, put it out into the world, put it out into the universe, and then people can hear it, people can listen to it. And I think that it's a really interesting situation for everybody because you kind of get to hear a little bit more. And when you start getting exposed to better perspectives or like more nuanced perspectives,
Yes.
that's really the thing that's most important. And you want to amplify those voices that are doing a good job of doing that.
Yeah. I think that, and also just the fundamental thing is just bet what you could afford to lose. Like
Yeah.
if you're okay with only losing $10, that's fine. You can just bet $10. If you're okay with losing much more than that, be careful. But like that, it's up to you. But I would say if you know you're gonna be pissed off because shit happens. Like there's no gimmies in gambling. Anybody could get hurt, anything could happen. People in boxing, for example, a sport that I'm better at betting on boxing than I am betting on any other sport. The NBA is second. But like guys get robbed. You know what I mean? Like things happen. Guys get stopped too early or whatever. Like knowing the politics of a sport sort of matters than in basketball. Like people get hurt. Like things just happen. So bet what you could afford to lose to. And the process is important. And hopefully hopefully this entire sort of culture thing, hopefully people just stop beefing with each other too. I usually like it, but like in this this area is weird. Leave that to rappers. Like Kendrick and Drake just went at it. Freddie Gibbs and J. Cole might just leave it to them. All right, leave the beef for them.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah, we don't need to. And you Capper said he followed me. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And yeah, you Capper, you seem like a reasonable dude. Thank you to everyone who checked this out. Follow Joe. Subscribe to the Cash That podcast, one of the only betting podcasts that I listen to that's in my rotation. Also, you could hear them, read them on Action Network. I'm about to get off right now to do. I'm actually doing our game guide tomorrow for Action Network, Nuggets and Bucks. We talked about
Hey.
a Giannis prop earlier, so I
Yeah,
may.
I could toss that one out there. I'm leaning. I'm taking a lean in. I'll take further dive in it, but I do think I like Giannis's points in this game against the Denver Nuggets. They're weak on the interior.
Yeah, I want to look at some numbers. Thank y'all for watching. We'll be back on the channel with more very soon, and I will clear up what's like the direction of this channel just in case people are confused. I'm going to post something about that next week. I don't think they should be, but I just want to be more forthcoming as I try to build a community.